Hello, hello, hello. My name is Lee Cara. This is Unleash Your Light. Unleash Your Light is simple things we can do in our everyday life to integrate the divine, to embrace unconditional love, and to shine it out to everyone around us and on ourselves. We have been talking about over the past couple of shows what is unconditional love. We've also spoken about learning to love yourself, embracing yourself, loving yourself unconditionally. Very difficult. If you want to see those shows, they are here on my YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about forgiveness, forgiveness of others. And the next show will be forgiveness of self. It can be very difficult to forgive ourselves for the things that we've done in life. And so that's a whole show within itself. But today we're going to talk about forgiving others. So when I talk about forgiveness of others, it doesn't necessarily have to be people in your life that have wronged you, although that is a good place to start. It can literally be people at the grocery store, people who annoy you while you're driving, things you see on the news that make you mad. Every time you get taken out of your character or anything that gives you a strong reaction, it's always connected to a place within us that either isn't healed or that is one of those things that the universe wants us to work on. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is when we look at others, we need to start in the space of seeing them through the divine eyes, seeing the piece of unconditional love that dwells within them. Every human has a piece of unconditional love that dwells within them. And each one of those humans is shaped by what they've gone through in their lives. They're shaped by the experiences that they've had. They're shaped by the people around them, by the environment they had. If you want to get real woo-woo, they're shaped by the spiritual mission that they're on. So the first thing that we have to do is recognize that every person has that piece of divine in it. I'm sure you guys are looking at my little kitty. This is Ozzy. I rescued Ozzy from the backyard. He has a little boo-boo on his arm. I know. So every person has that divine spark within them. So we really need to be able to see that even as they are making us angry, even as we may want to, resort to a physical smack upside the head. Or we want to be rude to them, or we want to curse them out in our head or through our mouths, right? The next thing that we need to do is be able to pull ourselves into the observer position. When we pull ourselves into the observer position, we're looking at things without taking it personally. We're taking our personal feelings out of it and we're shifting into that divine observer position so that we can kind of look at it from a different perspective. We can see that that person who cut you off had a terrible day and they're fighting with their significant other in the car, or that they're crying because they're just coming from the hospital. You're seeing that that cashier that was rude to you is also going through some terrible things. Their lights are going to get turned off, or they can't, they're fighting, they're in a divorce, they're losing their children, we don't know what someone is going through. And while we might say, well, that's not an excuse for them to act that way, that's true. That's 100% true. But we can only control ourselves and how we react to the world. I heard Devon Franklin say that once. It's really stuck with me. We cannot control how others behave or treat us. We can only control how we react. But in controlling how we react, we will usually shift the energy of whatever situation we're in. If somebody snaps at us and we snap back, it's escalated and they will snap even harder. But if somebody snaps at us and we're gentle, they may hear themselves in a different way. They may kind of pull it back a little bit. They may recognize where they are out of line, or at the very least, they'll appreciate your gentleness. They'll appreciate your kindness. You might be the only person who's nice to that cashier all day, When we look out into the world and we see like the news, we're watching politics, we're watching what's going on, no matter what side of it you're on, it seems like it's designed to make us angry about something. It's designed to make us feel some type of way and be divided and be angry rather than seeing those common spaces. So the first thing that we need to do, and this is a good place to practice because you don't have to practice on real people. They're still real people, but they're in the television. They're not going to hear you. So when you're feeling angry about an issue that's going on, when you're feeling angry about what somebody is saying, shift yourself into that observer position, right? Don't take what they're saying personally, even if it affects you personally. Don't take it as a personal jab at you. They're doing this to me or to my child or to my to my husband, my brother, my friend. We need to shift ourselves into that observer position and try to see their perspective. Try to see how their point of view was shaped by their life, by what's going on, by the life that they live, the area that they live in, we can really, it doesn't have to be true what we're thinking of as a reason for their perspective, but it could be an explanation. Even if it's not for that particular person, it could be for someone. And the whole point is not to get you to agree with what they're saying or even to get you to feel sympathy for them or feel bad for them, or you don't even have to have the real story of why they feel that way. It's just a tool so that when they express their opinion, you don't have to get angry about it. You're allowed to have an opinion about it, for sure. And you can feel passionate about it, for sure. But being angry at that person individually shifts you into a different sort of an energy. It shifts you into a different vibration or frequency, or however you want to put it. I always say, though, we're always the right frequency, but we can temporarily change it. We can temporarily shift it. And I'm a very strong believer in we are the machine, the time machine that shifts us between timelines. So I think of our frequency as like a guitar string, right? The guitar string, when you pluck it without touching it, it always rings at the right frequency, or it always rings at a frequency. But as soon as you put your fingers on it, it rings differently. And so our anger is like putting our fingers on the guitar string, which shifts where our frequency is. It shifts the energy around us. And if you think about this as forgiving others is really for yourself. You're not forgiving them for them. You're forgiving them for you. If you think about the type of day when you wake up and then something little goes wrong and you get annoyed, but you move on. And then something a little bit bigger goes wrong because you're still annoyed, but you move on. Now you're more annoyed. And then something else happens, but now you're really annoyed and now you're a little bit mad. And then you're mad and you go in and you're stomping around at work and you spill coffee everywhere. Now you're really mad. Like, it creates this energy that multiplies and that tends to drag you into it deeper and deeper and deeper. Whereas if you can shift that little thing at the beginning of the day back into something where you're not mad, where you're not annoyed, where it's not a big deal, then the rest of your day doesn't act crazy. The rest of your day doesn't go downhill like that in the same way. And maybe things will still happen that kind of go downhill, but the way that you react to it will keep your energy where it needs to be, because all you can do is control yourself. You can't control what everyone else is doing. Although, as people think, as people believe, we are the co-creators of our life, the life around us. But the way that we co-create is through our own actions and our own beliefs. And so if we start to believe the world is against us, if we start to believe that everybody's out to get me, those people are terrible and they're out to get me, then that's what starts to shape our world. If we see negativity everywhere, if we see crappy people everywhere, if we see nothing but jerks out there, then that starts to shift the world that we see. That starts to change our energy. So we really have to pay attention to that sort of a thing when it comes to forgiving others. Now, if we shift to something a little bit closer to home, like the people in our lives who have hurt us, I know that this is where I lose a lot of people, and they disagree with me, and that's fine. If something I say pisses you off, makes you angry, you know, it makes you feel something, anything that gives you a strong reaction is a place where you have some work to do, where you have some attention to give, where a little bit of awareness needs to be sent, maybe a little bit of healing, just for clarification or for actual healing, to shift where you are, to change how you feel about something. The things that have happened to us in the past create repeating patterns in our life, and we will keep recreating those things in our life that hurt us in the past into our current cycle. So we'll keep picking the same type of people to be our friends who betray us over and over. We'll keep picking the same man over and over again, or the same woman who hurts us in the same way. We'll keep having the same fights with our family decade after decade after decade. And it's all because we have not resolved that initial conflict, that initial place where we were injured, that wound from when we were a child. And maybe it was something as simple as, uh, somebody didn't listen to you when you were 5 years old. And now when you don't get listened to, you throw a fit, you get angry, you scream and yell, You really have to pay attention and be very self-aware about the things that others do that make you feel some type of way. Because when you're feeling some type of way, that is a clue to a space inside of you that still needs some attention. And this is not to lay blame. This is not to make anyone feel like they're less than. We are all doing this. I include myself in this. I've been repeating the same patterns for 55 years, So I get it 100%. And it's really about radical self-awareness and paying attention to those things that come up over and over and over again in our lives. And if we can do that, if we can see those patterns that come up over and over and over again in our lives, then we can shape our future, we can shape our present, and we can change what comes up. Now, that's not to say that new stuff won't come up, because it will. But you can put that particular pattern in the past. Forgiveness is always for you. It does not matter whether the other person hears you forgive them, whether you can have a conversation with them. They don't have to say, I'm sorry. None of that has to happen for you to forgive. You can forgive and not condone, which means you can forgive someone and not say it's okay what they did or what they did to you. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again because you choose to put up a boundary there. You don't have to forget. You don't have to speak to someone that you don't want to speak to. But you can also forgive that person and let them be in whatever space they're in, way over there. You don't have to forgive them and welcome them back into your life. But when you hold on to the anger, what is it that Buddha says? Anger is like grasping a hot coal and hoping that the other person hurts, or drinking poison so the other person will die or be hurt by it. We are forgiving for ourselves, for our own space, for our own happiness, for our own contentedness. We forgive for us so that we don't have that little blockage, that finger on the strings of our frequency of unconditional love, of that space where we're able to be joyful, be happy, be peaceful, be contented, live in that space of unconditional love that we are always searching to be in, right? When we meditate, that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for that moment of silence where we feel the love of the universe. And we can live that in our everyday life. If we continue to choose to embrace unconditional love, grab that when we're looking at others, see the divine in them, Don't take things personally. Lift yourself into that observer position. Know that when others hurt you, it's because of the pain within them. And maybe you're supposed to trigger their pain just like they're supposed to trigger yours. And it always gives us an opportunity to heal ourselves so that we can go to the next lesson, move into the next space, and continue to try to live within that unconditional love energy. All right, y'all, that's enough for today. Our next show is going to be about forgiving yourself in these spaces where we're going to apply that exact same thing to ourselves, but we'll talk about that in the next show. I have hours and hours and hours of shows here on YouTube. I also have a website called unleashyourlight.org where you can find links to very specific topics if you're interested, as well as I have a couple of books and ebooks on Amazon if you'd like to check those out. I am so grateful for you to join me here. And always remember that you are beloved, you matter, and you are so very loved.